Hello, my name is Yana. I live in a forest. Sometimes I make some quilty things. This month of December 2025, I'm making one video a day, which is very ambitious. But for a Sunday video, I've decided that I'm going to make something special, like a little project, and it's a gift idea, a late gift idea. And it's something that I was giving to people, and it proves the point that sometimes the gift isn't as important as the story that you wrap around the gift. We're going to be making a simple drawstring bag. I've already started, and right now I'm going to show you a couple clips of how I started. Right now I'm cutting the papers out for the little bag that I'm making, and I just had an index card. An index card is exactly 3 by 5 inches, so I drew the lines on. There you go. And now we're working with this thing. It's an English paper paste little bag that's inside out, and there are a couple things that we need to do to finish this bag. First of all, I need to make lining. I'm going to make it out of this beautiful neutral polka dot, and I'm going to make some channels for the drawstring. Do I have any strings here? Well, I'll find some strings. We need to take the papers out, press everything, and there are lots of elegant ways to construct a drawstring bag. I was doing some research on the internet, and it looks like everybody and their mom has a method of making a drawstring bag, but I'm going to be using the most brute force way of doing it. And the reason is because I really wanted to have my pattern fully assembled with papers before I do anything else. So I didn't want to ruin my perfect piecing by kind of making it out of two parts and joining it on the side seams. I thought, no, I'm going to suffer a little bit with the final thing, and I'm just going, everything's going to look perfect on the outside. That's how I live my life. So, what are we going to do? Let's take the papers out. I have recently acquired a box that's meant to be used for storing tea bags, but it looks like it's perfect for storing little paper pieces. I'm a little bit excited. So I have a container to put my papers in. And do I have a container to put my threads in? I'm going to find one. To make my future life a little bit easier, I'm going to baste the top edge into place so that I don't lose anything while I'm handling the thing, because I want to have this edge perfect and very sharp. So I'm just going to baste it really quickly. I have just realized that I might be making a huge mistake by assuming that everybody who happens to click on this video knows how to get to this stage. But it's very straightforward, really. It's just the only part that's tricky is this part, but it's not. So I'm just going to keep my assumptions and just talk to you like you know what you're doing. And for someone like you probably could have just looked at a photograph of a finished project and thought, oh yeah, makes sense, makes sense. I can do this. Because you can. It's very simple. Papers are out. Let's see what we have. Did I mention that we're making a medicine bag? Or just something very English? Because it looks a little bit like an English flag, but I was meaning to do a red cross. Some of my design decisions. I have... So this pattern gets a full repeat on 10 columns. That's why each of the sides is 5 squares wide, and I really want it to be relatively small. That's because I made those 1-inch squares out of paper. It makes everything very simple. I'm going to draw the same shape of this bag out of lining, but first I'm going to press everything, and then I'm going to prepare my lining and prepare my drawstring channels. And I'm going to meet you with everything already pressed. I should have, of course, pressed this thoroughly before taking it off the papers and before connecting the sides. Then I would have had a much better result right now, but it doesn't matter. I had to use regular pencil because my disappearing ink pen disappears right after I'm drawing on fabric. Horrible. That's why I usually use chalk. Taylor's chalk. It's very, very reliable. Anyway, I've ended up cutting out the channels at 5.5 by 2, and the lining is 5 by 6 plus seam allowance of a half inch, so it's 6 by 7. And can you see anything? Well, yeah. These are my lines, and I've marked my lines on both sides so that I can do the corners neatly. And you might notice that I have a fold here, but I still drew a seam allowance and my lines because I'm going to sew here, because a seam is always stronger than a fold. Like it matters. Like it matters. It doesn't. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to press some things into this thing, and then I'm going to press the top seam allowance. Yeah, I'm going to press the top seam allowance on this thing so that I don't lose it later. And what else? Then we get to play with the machine. I used to make a lot of drawstring bags just as something to do with my hands. I didn't have a lot of use for them, but I've thought that maybe I can carry some snacks around with me, like dried fruit and nuts and such. It's a nice way to have snacks. But I ended up always giving them away to people, so I didn't have any for myself. Right now I only have one, and it holds a deck of cards. But if I had to figure out a gift for somebody, like last minute, I would probably steal that from myself, because they're really useful as gifts where the bag is actually often more valuable than the gift that you put inside the bag. Back in Moscow, I have a sewing machine that a friend gave me. It's an old Trodol machine, and I think it's impossible to use in a flat, because it's going to vibrate through the floor to the neighbors, and it's going to be not very enjoyable for them. But I really want to have that mechanical machine in here. As soon as we move, I'm going to put it in that room, and it's going to be beautiful, because I really want to have a mechanical machine. It's not as loud as this one. I know that professional sewing machines are quieter than the domestic ones, but I'm not there yet. And I really like making things by hand, so sewing on a sewing machine even a very good one. I wouldn't invest in a professional machine for now, I think. Big question. Do you think that I should change the color in the machine because I have gray thread and this fabric is obviously red? Is it important enough to go through the trouble of changing out the thread? Let's do this. Let's do this. Come on. I stitched the lining. I have left a gap on the side because that's what I'm going to use to turn everything around. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't think everything through. I'm just winging it at the moment. But I saw a thing on the internet where a person would stitch over those lines like in a continuous line, and then she would cut the corners out and make everything. And I think that that's very clever. Let's cut the corners out. I'm eyeballing the seam allowance because I have the lines drawn on the fabric. I don't really care. And on the topic of eyeballing things, the more you train your eyeballs, the better you will be at eyeballing things, but it's risky. Here are my corners. I clipped it, and the idea is that now I'm going to open this, make sure that my seams are aligned, and just stitch over this line, and this way I'm going to have a nice boxy corner on the lining. Wish me luck. I'm going to put everything together and again pretend that you don't know how it's done. I'm going to have my bag right sides out, and I'm going to pin my... No, that's not what I'm going to do, because I'm brute forcing it. Now, if I was sane, here's what I would do. I would take my bag and have it right side out, and I wouldn't have this edge folded. I would have it open and have the correct seam allowance. But I'm really worried about my squares being perfect. That's why this edge is folded, and I'm keeping it this way. But if I had it open, I would pin my channel onto here like so. I would then put my lining on wrong side out so that the right sides are facing each other, and I would pin it all together like a normal person. And then I would stitch on this line all the way across, all the way around, and then I would have, logically I have both channels, and then I would just put it inside out through this opening. But because I'm a mad woman, I don't actually need this opening, so I'm just going to close it right now. And I'm going to pin everything in place just as it's supposed to be. So I have this thing. So here is my bag. Here is my lining. And I'm going to have this closed because I don't need it. And I'm going to put my lining into my bag just as it should be. Make sure that all the corners are in the right places. They're not going to be connected in any way, but I can have my seams here. Just make sure that my seams are in the right places. Like, I can pin it just for now. And I can pin this one. Now everything is in the correct place. And now I'm going to insert my channels into here very, very carefully. I can do a chalk line where I want them to be. I'm just doing it in the most difficult way possible. I don't know why. I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. Instead of pinning, I've decided that I'm going to do the right thing and baste everything. Now I'm using this little seam allowance ruler to make sure that I'm stepping away exactly 1 centimeter from the edge. And this way everything is, everything is perfect. Perfect. So I did a half. I'm using those methods. I've realized that I'm using those methods because I'm used to doing everything by hand. It's in my head, it's a completely handmade project, and that's why I'm not using the techniques that would make sense to use on a machine. Like someone who owns a machine would do it differently than I tend to do it. But does it really matter? I don't know. Now I'm almost done. I'm just adding a drawstring. I found a pair of shoelaces. Lucky me. So here's the joke. I tend to be friends with men who are in their 40s and 50s. And some of them feel a little bit uncomfortable with their age at that point. And once one of them had a birthday, or it was a New Year's. It was for New Year's, I think. I came up with a hilarious idea that I'm going to give him a bag full of medicines. And because he said, "Oh, I'm such an old man." So I said, "Okay, old man, I'm going to give you some medicines." There were some genuinely useful things in there, some over-the-counter stuff, some light painkillers, some like aspirin, and something specifically from hangover, band-aids, something to treat diarrhea, something to help with digestion, those kinds of things. Genuinely useful stuff. That's why I don't feel bad about this gift, even though it's a little bit mean, but it's like I'm teasing him because he's an old man. He says that he's an old man. So that's what old men want to get as gifts. And am I going to add another one? I'm going to try it and add another one. So I think that this gift is hilarious, and that's why I think that having something like this, it doesn't take a lot of time to put together, and it can be seen as thoughtful, even though sometimes it isn't. Finally, all done. And it works. It works. It's a bit tight, so I would probably change the drawstring to something else. But it doesn't matter. It has a nice lining. Some loose threads. Everything is nice. Everything sits well together. And I can put my own medicine in there because I have a couple chronic conditions and I need medicine all the time. So that's the project. I hope you liked it. I'm pretty sure that that's only an idea that you can work with if you want, because a person with skills and a sewing machine can do something like this at the fraction of the time. That's it for today. I hope that you liked this video. I really like sharing my design process with you and sharing my ideas and how I stumble upon my ideas. I think that that's more important than the project itself, if you think about it. Because a bag is a great project even if you don't put any pills in it. But maybe put something in a bag. If you're gifting a bag, put something in a bag. I sometimes put a small bottle of liquor or maybe just some snacks because it's a nice, thoughtful thing to give to people. And unfortunately, I cannot figure out how to make them in advance and just keep them just in case if somebody needs a gift. But I'm pretty sure that a person with skills and a sewing machine could make something like this a lot quicker than I do, because I like to suffer and I like to make things by hand. That's completely unnecessary. It's just how I do things, especially when it's squares. Previously, I only made those types of bags out of hexagons, triangles. You know the drill. You know the drill. Yeah. I'm not sure if I'll see you tomorrow because I'm getting a little bit burnt out and maybe I'm going to skip tomorrow. So I think I'll definitely see you on Tuesday. And for the next week's Sunday video, I'm hoping to come up with something else interesting. But maybe also a very small project because I don't have capacity for a big one right now. I hope you're well, and I'll see you later.